The galaxy had long underestimated humanity. From the remote star systems near the Andromeda Rift to the bustling hubs of the galactic core, humans were observed, catalogued, and dismissed. Other species measured strength in the scale of their fleets, the destructive power of their armaments, and the extent of their dominion over multiple star systems. Humanity had none of these things, at least in ways that impressed the galaxy. Their exploratory vessels were modest, their colonies scattered, and their ships carried no fleets of dreadnoughts capable of planetary annihilation. And yet, there was something about humans that no one fully understood. In the glassy observation halls of the Council of Elders, representatives from dozens of civilizations studied every human movement. From crystalline beings whose very thoughts shimmered in visible pulses of light to serpentine warlords who measured strength by intimidation and aggression, the Elders had seen empires rise and fall, wars that had reshaped entire sectors, and treaties that had shattered before they cooled. Yet humans remained curious anomalies. "They do nothing," hissed the High Arbiter of the Vraxni Dominion, his sinuous form coiling beneath the observation dais. His scales reflected the dim lights of the council chamber, and his eyes narrowed as he flicked his forked tongue against his teeth. "They explore. They chart. They build minor colonies in unclaimed systems. But they do not expand aggressively. They do not conquer. They do not threaten. They simply exist." The other council members, representatives of the Orathic Syndicate, the Crystalline Tail Collective, and countless smaller polities, nodded in agreement. The humans' ships were small, their weaponry unremarkable. Even their colonies, which had begun appearing on barren worlds and asteroid belts, were carefully managed and sparsely populated. To the Elders, humans were insignificant, almost quaint. Yet, there was an undercurrent of unease, faint but undeniable. Observers noticed subtle anomalies, human expeditions returning with comprehensive data on ecosystems, gravitational fields, and stellar anomalies that other civilizations had overlooked, isolated skirmishes with pirates handled with surgical precision, trade routes established in previously ignored systems with remarkable efficiency. Humans never overextended. Humans never acted recklessly. Humans were patient. It was this patience that made them terrifying. On New Terra, humanity's homeworld, government and military officials monitored the same sectors that the Elders observed, but with a different perspective. They did not panic when fleets of alien observers passed through neighboring systems. They did not strike back at minor provocations. Instead, humans cataloged, analyzed, and waited. Every skirmish with a rogue faction, every act of aggression from a foreign power, was recorded and analyzed. Every human vessel, from the smallest scout ship to the colossal Hammer-class strategic fleet, followed strict operational protocols designed to maximize efficiency while minimizing unnecessary engagement. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, the Elders debated humanity's supposed passivity. "They lack ambition," said the Orathic Syndicate's delegate, a creature of shifting shadows and whispering voices. "They have no fleets capable of projecting power, no weapons capable of destroying worlds. Their colonies are insignificant. Their home system barely ranks as a Tier 3 civilization. Surely they are beneath notice." "Beneath notice," the Vraxni Arbiter hissed, baring rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Do you not see the subtlety? They do not act out of impulse. They wait, they calculate, they observe, they learn. Every interaction, every deployment, every move they make is measured. They are slow, yes. Silent, yes. but not weak. Patience is a weapon, and we are blind to it. The crystalline teal delegate's facets shimmered nervously. Perhaps we are overthinking them. They have not attacked anyone. Their fleets are small, their weaponry modest. Why fear a species that does nothing? But even as the elders spoke, human fleets quietly continued their work. In the farthest reaches of unclaimed space, survey vessels charted wormholes and stellar anomalies with methodical accuracy. Colonies on fringe planets harvested resources efficiently, without disturbing native lifeforms or ecosystems. Human researchers studied alien species and local politics, sending detailed reports back to centralized databases on Terra, Mars, Titan, and orbital habitats in the outer belts. Every movement was deliberate. Every action had a purpose. And the galaxy, in its arrogance, interpreted this as inaction. The first subtle warning came in the outer belt. A group of pirate raiders, emboldened by the absence of immediate human retaliation, attacked a small research outpost orbiting the barren moon Cressidia IX. The humans did not respond with overwhelming force. No fleets descended. No orbital bombardment destroyed the raiders' ships. Instead, a single human strike team infiltrated the raider vessels, neutralizing engines, jamming communications, and capturing the crew alive. The outpost remained intact. No civilians died. The raiders were delivered to Terra for processing, interrogated, and imprisoned. Across the galaxy, intelligence bureaus of other species received the reports and dismissed them. A minor skirmish handled carefully. Nothing to worry about. No one understood the precision, the efficiency, the cold, calculating patience behind it. Even within the human colonies, there was no celebration. Every operative returned to base as though nothing had occurred. Analysts continued their work. Ships returned to patrol. Trade vessels continued along their routes. Humanity did not boast. Humanity did not flaunt. Humanity waited. Patience, in their philosophy, was strength. It was preparation. It was inevitability. The elders, still observing from the rift, noticed only slowly that something was amiss. Human activity was increasing subtly but strategically. Minor disputes in contested regions were resolved with quiet precision. Alien incursions were handled with perfect coordination. Maps of interstellar lanes and potential choke points were adjusted to account for human movements that, to any other species, would have seemed random but were not. The High Arbiter of the Vraxni Dominion leaned over the console, scales glittering. They are preparing. But for what? They wait, the teal delegate said, facets dimmed in realization. They are patient. Too patient. Patience, the council realized too late, was not weakness. It was a weapon honed over centuries, a methodical force capable of reshaping the galaxy if wielded. Humans did not act rashly, did not seek glory, did not crave conquest. They acted for necessity, for loyalty, for their own. And the universe had never faced a species capable of such deliberate, calculating resolve. On Terra, deep within the command centers beneath the sprawling cities, human leaders reviewed the same reports. They assume we are slow, passive, said General Aaron Kovac, one of the strategic architects of humanity's long-term defense plans. Let them assume it. Let them believe we are insignificant. They will regret it when the time comes. The galaxy continued its chatter, mocking and dismissive, completely unaware of the storm being quietly constructed. Humanity's patience stretched across months, years, and decades. The human silence was not surrender. It was the laying of foundations, the precise alignment of forces, and the careful observation of weaknesses in the greater galaxy. And in the shadows between the stars, human vessels moved with silent determination. Ships charted, fleets coordinated, colonies flourished not through aggression, but through meticulous preparation. Patience was not merely a tactic. It was a philosophy, a core strength that the galaxy had utterly failed to recognize. In the cold emptiness of space, in unclaimed systems, in the silent corridors of remote research stations, humans waited. The galaxy, arrogant and blind, continued to underestimate them. But patience has a tipping point. And humanity, the universe, would soon learn, never broke under pressure. They waited, they calculated, and when the time came, they would strike with a precision and inevitability that no species had ever endured and none would survive forgetting. For now, they remained silent. But that silence, calculated and eternal, was a warning that the universe would soon learn to fear. The galaxy, as it always did, misread humanity. To the Vraxni Dominion, the Orathic Syndicate, and the Tel Collective, silence was a sign of submission, patience a weakness. They saw the humans' methodical expansion, their careful establishment of colonies on the fringes of unclaimed systems, and assumed caution equated to fear. And yet, every measurement, every decision, every recorded movement was calculated with a cold, deliberate precision no other species possessed. It began subtly. Human surveyors charted regions near the disputed sectors of the outer rift, mapping asteroid belts and planetary anomalies, collecting data on gravity wells and radiation streams, cataloging the movement of local wildlife and alien species. They were slow, deliberate, unassuming. To any other species, their presence seemed harmless, almost invisible. But the Dominion noticed patterns. The Vraxni Council scrutinized every trajectory, every colony placement, every orbital construction. They observed humans establishing secure outposts, connecting them with hyperlight communication nodes, reinforcing them with defensive shields and stealth technology that left even Dominion analysts uneasy. They are preparing, hissed High Arbiter K. Theron, coiled atop his observation dais. His scales shimmered with a faint blue glow as his voice trembled with both unease and awe. But for what? These outposts are small, insignificant. Their fleets are minimal. What could they possibly intend? The council debated, but consensus proved impossible. Some elders dismissed the humans as a curiosity, incapable of causing true harm. Others, quieter, admitted a gnawing unease that grew with every report. Humans were patient, yes, but patience is not weakness. To the humans, patience was a tool. Every decision, every delay, every calculated silence was part of a larger strategy. They understood the galaxy differently than their observers. Where other species measured power by fleets and firepower, humans measured by possibility, the potential energy stored in preparation, the advantage of knowing when and where to act. The first deliberate test came when the coalition decided to provoke the humans directly. The three dominant empires of Vraxni, Orathic, and Tail coordinated a series of incursions into human-controlled systems. Patrol ships entered human territories uninvited. Trade convoys were blocked. Communications were jammed. Mining colonies were inspected under the guise of regulation. On Terra, the human leadership monitored every action. General Aaron Kovac, architect of humanity's long-term strategy, observed the coalition's movements with calm, unflinching eyes. Around him, analysts worked tirelessly, mapping fleet positions, predicting potential ambushes, and running simulations of every possible human response. "They think we will act rashly," Kovac murmured. His voice was steady, almost serene, as if discussing the weather rather than a galaxy-wide provocation. "They believe impatience is inevitable. They will soon discover that patience has its own strength." Human fleets did not mobilize immediately. Civilian transport ships continued their routes. Mining colonies operated as usual. Orbital defenses maintained their silent vigilance. Each human action was deliberate, calculated to avoid unnecessary escalation. Their apparent inaction infuriated the coalition. Messages were sent. Ultimatums were issued. Warnings blared across subspace. Human colonies received fleets at their gates, armed with superior numbers and advanced weaponry, expecting hesitation. And still, the humans waited. This was not indecision. This was deliberate, patient observation. Every sensor reading, every patrol flight, every coded communication was recorded, analyzed, and factored into the human understanding of the coalition's capabilities. They studied the enemy with the patience of a species that knew time could be an ally. When minor skirmishes inevitably occurred, humans responded with precision and restraint. A fleet of erratic warships attempting to blockade a human mining operation was intercepted not with immediate destruction, but with carefully coordinated electromagnetic pulses that disabled engines and navigation systems. Ships drifted silently, immobilized but intact, their crews unharmed. The humans repaired, captured, and reprogrammed where necessary, demonstrating a mastery of containment and control that stunned every observing species. Civilian casualties were meticulously avoided. Human operatives rescued alien workers trapped in crossfire, stabilized habitats under threat, and ensured that the smallest details were never overlooked. To other species, this seemed almost incomprehensible. They expected violence, devastation, chaos. Humans delivered none of it, and the coalition grew desperate. They increased the pressure, deploying larger fleets, blockading multiple sectors simultaneously, and attempting psychological warfare through subspace propaganda. They broadcast warnings of supposed human weakness, claiming that hesitation indicated fear. They believed that impatience would force a human reaction. Yet humans continued to wait. On Titan, high above the ice-capped poles, human strategists convened quietly. Holographic displays mapped every coalition movement, every fleet trajectory, every possible countermeasure. Analysts, engineers, and commanders worked in near silence, coordinating every detail with cold precision. Each calculation considered not only the enemy's potential actions, but also the safety of civilians, the preservation of infrastructure, and the minimization of unintended consequences. "They think patience is weakness," General Kovac said again, walking among the displays. His eyes gleamed with quiet intensity. "They are learning the wrong lesson. Patience is strength. Time is a weapon. And when the moment comes, we will act with certainty." Across the galaxy, intelligence networks buzzed with reports of human calm. Fleet commanders debated, diplomats whispered, and elders murmured warnings too late. The humans' inaction was deceptive, a calculated layer of strategy. They did not seek confrontation, but they were ready for it. They did not provoke, but they were prepared to respond. They did not underestimate the cost of patience, nor did they undervalue the consequences of delay. Every empire, every fleet, every strategist misread the humans as they always had: slow, cautious, insignificant, and that misreading would be their downfall. Because when humans finally acted, the galaxy would see a force unlike any other, precise, relentless, and inexorable. Their patience had not dulled them. It had sharpened them, honed them, prepared them for the moment when the universe itself underestimated them one final, fatal time. The coalition, confident in their superiority, had prodded the beast. They thought humans would respond with fury or flee in panic. They would discover instead that humans did not react emotionally. Humans did not act rashly. Humans acted only when every detail aligned, every contingency accounted for, and every step calculated to perfection. Patience was no longer a tool. It was a weapon, and the galaxy would soon learn to fear it. The galaxy had grown impatient, but humanity had grown resolute. Every moment of apparent inaction had been deliberate. Every day of waiting, every silent observation had been preparation. The coalition composed of the Vraxni Dominion, the Orathic Syndicate, and the Tail Collective believed they had provoked humans into weakness, or at least into a predictable response. They could not have been more wrong. It began in the deep void of contested space, where human strike groups quietly assembled near the outer fringes of 3 critical systems. The vessels were small, sleek, and unassuming to the untrained eye. Observation fleets from the coalition cataloged them, noting the number of ships, their apparent lack of heavy weaponry, and the limited crew aboard each vessel. Analysts within the Dominion scoffed, confident that even if humans attempted any offensive maneuver, it would be inconsequential. They would learn the truth in the first heartbeat of the operation. Human fleets moved like clockwork. Sensors pulsed with silent synchronization. Communications remained encrypted, minimal, and deliberately ambiguous. Each ship maintained exact positions relative to their objectives, every tactical node mapped in a grid of deadly precision. Not a single vessel drifted out of formation. Not a single decision was made without consultation and confirmation from multiple command points. The first act of execution was subtle but devastating. Dominion orbital stations, previously regarded as untouchable symbols of authority, were neutralized simultaneously. Electromagnetic pulse arrays disabled energy shields without triggering alarms. Docked vessels lost power and communications, drifting inert as human boarding teams, small, expertly trained squads, boarded silently. Every station was secured, every crew contained, and every civilian protected. Not a single life was lost. Coalition fleets scrambled in disbelief. Command officers shouted into comms, demanding explanations, deploying interceptors to block what they assumed would be a flustered human response. But the humans did not panic. They did not overextend. Each reaction was anticipated, every fleet movement accounted for. Coalition missiles were intercepted, not destroyed, but captured in gravitational nets and neutralized without triggering detonation. Ships that had once laughed at humanity's modest weaponry found themselves drifting powerless, crews bewildered and terrified. Human strategists had anticipated every possible move, every countermeasure, every hesitation. The precision of their operation was terrifying. It was not chaos. It was not improvisation. It was inevitability. On Terra, General Aaron Kovac observed the unfolding events through a live subspace feed. His team of analysts monitored the synchronized strikes across 3 systems simultaneously. Every target was captured, disabled, or contained without unnecessary destruction. Every human operative executed their mission with perfect timing. And still, there was no overkill, no bloodlust, no need to escalate further than required. They thought our patience was weakness, Kovac murmured. They will discover it is our greatest strength. Every delay, every observation, every calculation, they misjudged the tempo of human action. They underestimated our inevitability. Across the Coalition's territories, alien citizens and military personnel alike watched their systems fall under human control without realizing what had happened until it was complete. Orbital cannons were disabled before firing a single shot. Communications arrays were hijacked but left functional for civilian use. Logistics hubs were captured intact. Every action demonstrated the terrifying efficiency of humans who acted only when all variables were accounted for. The Coalition's leadership, now panicked, attempted to broadcast warnings and threats. Subspace transmissions declared that humans would be met with overwhelming force if they continued their operations. High admirals attempted to maneuver massive fleets into engagement positions. Yet for every move, the humans had prepared a response. Every fleet, every ship, every operative acted as though pre-programmed by a single mind, coordinated across vast distances with calm, terrifying precision. It was then that the first message came, delivered to all 3 Coalition commands simultaneously. We have observed your provocations. We have waited. We do not seek war. We do not desire conquest. But we protect our own. This action is deliberate. This response is inevitable. Any further aggression will be met with certainty, and certainty is not negotiable. No threats, no bluster, no malice, just truth. And in that calm, detached delivery lay the greatest terror the Coalition had ever faced. Humans did not need rage to be dangerous. They only needed inevitability. In the deep void, human forces moved systematically through the Coalition's defenses. Command nodes were captured intact, their data harvested, analyzed, and used to preempt future actions. Entire fleets were immobilized without destruction. The human strike teams avoided civilian casualties, assisted alien personnel wherever possible, and maintained perfect operational discipline throughout. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a species had faced an opponent that could wait decades, observe every weakness, and strike with perfect inevitability without a single misstep. The Coalition, despite overwhelming numbers, advanced technology, and centuries of experience, found itself helpless against calm, deliberate strategy. Even within the captured fleets, Coalition officers whispered to one another in disbelief. How can they do this without fleet-scale weapons? Without orbital bombardment? The answer was simple. Humans did not need raw power to dominate. They relied on patience, preparation, and precision. They struck only when the outcome was unavoidable, and they never left a variable unaccounted for. On the Hammer-class fleet flagship orbiting one of the Coalition's central systems, Captain Mara Osei oversaw the operation. Her team coordinated strikes across 3 systems simultaneously. Every boarding team, every disablement squad, every subspace disruption module was accounted for. Even as Coalition fleets attempted maneuvers to intercept, Mara's fingers moved across her console with quiet, precise efficiency. Each command was a note in a symphony of inevitable victory. They believed patience was weakness, Mara said softly, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. They will learn, in time, that it is the weapon they could never comprehend. And once they do, it will be too late. As human forces completed their objectives, the coalition reeled. Systems were intact, citizens unharmed, and fleets neutralized, but the message was clear. Humans acted only when necessary, with perfect calculation, and with a focus that no other species could match. Every admiral, every diplomat, every soldier understood that humanity could wait, could endure, and when it acted with inescapable certainty. In the council chambers of the elders, the realization dawned slowly. The human silence had been preparation. Their patience, long mistaken for weakness, had matured into unstoppable, methodical power. And the galaxy, arrogant and presumptuous, had invited the consequences upon itself. The first strike had been subtle, surgical, and nearly invisible, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had demonstrated that they could bide their time, observe, and act with perfect inevitability. Every empire, every fleet, every strategist had learned the same terrifying lesson. Provoke a human at your peril, and you will face a force that strikes not with fury, but with precision, patience, and unerring inevitability. The galaxy had underestimated them for centuries, and now it was learning why that was a mistake it could never repeat. The coalition had thought themselves clever. They had believed that numbers, firepower, and intimidation could force humanity into haste, into rashness, into mistakes. They were wrong. Their arrogance had underestimated the fundamental nature of humans. Patience was not weakness. It was strategy. Silence was not submission. It was calculation. And by the time the coalition realized their error, the humans were already in motion, executing a plan that had been decades in the making. Across the 3 targeted systems, human strike teams moved with surgical precision. Orbital stations, once considered bastions of the coalition's power, were neutralized without a single casualty. Defenses were disabled, yet civilian populations remained unharmed. Human engineers repaired vital systems to maintain basic infrastructure, demonstrating an efficiency and consideration that left the alien observers bewildered. These were not attacks. They were operations executed with cold inevitability. Fleet engagements that should have erupted into chaos never materialized. Coalition ships, confident in their technological superiority, attempted to counter human movements. But every maneuver had already been anticipated. Electromagnetic nets disabled engines before vessels could fire. Subspace jammers severed communications, isolating ships from command. Boarding teams secured key personnel alive, studying their tactics and gathering intelligence for further operations. Not a single unnecessary action was taken. Every choice was measured, precise, deliberate. On the command bridge of the Hammer-class human flagship, Captain Mara Osei coordinated the simultaneous strikes across all 3 sectors. Her fingers moved with quiet efficiency across the holographic console, sending vectors and commands to sub-commanders hundreds of light-minutes apart. Every strike was perfectly timed. Every move anticipated the enemy's response. The humans were not just fighting. They were demonstrating a principle, an unspoken truth that the galaxy had ignored for too long. Humans are patient, and patience is a weapon of its own kind. Within the coalition's command structures, panic began to take root. Admirals shouted into comms, attempting to coordinate defensive maneuvers, but for every action, there was already a human countermeasure in place. Ships that had previously sneered at human capabilities were now adrift, immobilized, or captured entirely. The coalition's strongest vessels, once symbols of invincibility, were rendered powerless before they even realized they were under attack. And still, the humans did not escalate beyond necessity. Civilians remained safe. Infrastructure remained intact. Entire systems were reclaimed without excessive violence. Every action had a purpose, and no action was wasted. It was discipline, strategy, and morality intertwined in a lethal combination that the galaxy had never seen before. Meanwhile, human operatives worked to stabilize regions destabilized by prior conflicts. Systems that had been blockaded were reopened. Trade routes were restored. Mining colonies returned to normal production. Even alien personnel, often distrustful of humanity, found themselves assisted and protected, earning cautious respect in the process. Every move was calculated, not only to neutralize threats, but to demonstrate that humans did not fight for domination or glory. They fought for preservation, for responsibility, and for inevitability. Back in the coalition's political chambers, fear turned to disbelief. High-ranking officials could not comprehend the efficiency and restraint humans exhibited. The Vraxni Arbiter, once so confident in his species' superiority, recoiled as he watched fleets vanish from tactical displays, not destroyed, but neutralized and contained. They are not attacking," he whispered, voice trembling with awe. "They are systematically dismantling us without killing anyone unnecessarily." The tail delegate's crystalline facets shimmered with what could only be described as alarm. "It is methodical, calculated, precise. They are showing us everything we feared, and yet—" Their voice trailed, hesitant. The realization was dawning. Humans did not require destruction to dominate. They did not need fury to triumph. They required only patience, precision, and purpose. On the outer edges of one of the Coalition's largest fleets, Admiral Lothar of the Erathic Syndicate struggled to comprehend what had happened. Communications were jammed. His fleet was immobilized. Key stations were secured by humans who had arrived faster than he thought possible. Reports streamed in from his subordinates. The enemy is everywhere, yet nowhere. They act only when necessary. They never hesitate, yet they never overextend. "Impossible," he muttered. "They cannot be everywhere at once." And yet they were. Human forces moved like a single organism, a networked intelligence operating with terrifying efficiency. The galaxy had never witnessed a species capable of such synchrony. Each fleet, each strike team, each operative understood the mission and executed it flawlessly. Every contingency had been accounted for, every move anticipated, every threat neutralized. The final piece of the operation fell into place when Coalition leadership attempted to regroup. They sent a massive fleet into one of the human-controlled systems, hoping to overwhelm with sheer numbers. Instead, the humans executed a carefully timed maneuver. Orbital cannons were disabled, subspace communications jammed, and the fleet's engines immobilized. Boarding teams secured every vessel without loss of life. Coalition commanders were captured and interrogated, their intelligence harvested to prevent future miscalculations. And then silence. The humans did not celebrate. The Coalition did not retaliate further. The message had been delivered. Humans had acted with precision and restraint. They had demonstrated that patience, not aggression, was their greatest weapon. They had taught the galaxy a lesson the Elders would never forget. Provoke humans, test their patience, underestimate their discipline, and you will face a response unlike anything you have ever encountered. In the aftermath, as human fleets withdrew to their respective colonies and stations, analysts and commanders across the galaxy scrambled to comprehend what had occurred. Entire systems had been neutralized, fleets immobilized, and colonies liberated not through brute force, not through chaos or rage, but through the cold, deliberate application of human patience and preparation. The elders convened again, more subdued than before. Every species in attendance knew the truth. Humans were not aggressive, but they were inevitable. Their patience had been a trap, their silence a warning. They had waited, calculated, and acted when the moment demanded. And that moment had arrived. "The universe has learned," whispered a teal delegate, facets dim with fear. "Patience can be a weapon." Across the stars, humans returned to their work. Exploration, research, trade, and settlement continued as if nothing had happened. They made no declaration of victory. They sought no conquest. And yet, their message resonated louder than any fleet, louder than any weapon. Humanity had acted with inevitability, and the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge it. Patience was no longer invisible. Silence was no longer dismissible. The universe had felt the weight of humanity's deliberate power, and it would never forget. The galaxy had been changed forever. The Coalition, the Elders, the countless interstellar powers who had underestimated humanity for centuries, all had come to the same terrifying conclusion. Humans were not impulsive, not reckless, not weak. They were patient, and patience was not merely a virtue, it was a weapon of precision, inevitability, and consequences. In the aftermath of the strikes, human fleets returned to their colonies and research outposts. Systems previously under threat of coercion were now secure. Trade routes resumed. Communication lines were restored. Mining operations, long blockaded, were back online. Civilian populations, alien and human alike, experienced minimal disruption, a testament to the meticulous care humans applied even in conflict. To the galaxy, it appeared almost miraculous. To the humans, it was merely efficiency. General Aaron Kovac watched the subspace feeds from Terra's orbital command. The Council of Human Commanders convened quietly, their expressions calm. They had anticipated every possible outcome of the Coalition's provocations. Every fleet maneuver, every blockade, every attempted intimidation had been accounted for. No variables had been overlooked, no corners cut. The humans had acted only when certainty demanded it. They think this was aggression. They will call it conquest, or retaliation, or war. But we acted for necessity, not anger. For loyalty, not domination. For inevitability, not vengeance. That is the difference. Across the galaxy, the Coalition was in disarray. High-ranking officials attempted to regroup, but every system had been neutralized with precision. Key officers were captured but unharmed, their knowledge used to prevent future misunderstandings, their fleets immobilized without destruction. The Coalition's infrastructure, political hierarchies, and military command chains had been tested and found wanting against a species they had dismissed as minor and indecisive. In the halls of the Vraxni Dominion, the Arbiter addressed his council. "We underestimated them," he admitted, scales dimming in acknowledgement of the truth. "We mocked their silence. We thought patience was cowardice. We thought inaction meant weakness. We were wrong. Deadly wrong." The Arathic Syndicate's leaders, too, had begun to reconsider their approach. Tactical analysts debated the humans' capabilities in hushed, fearful tones. "They did not destroy us," whispered an admiral, "and yet we are more defeated than if they had. How can patience alone accomplish this?" It was not revenge that defined humanity. It was restraint. It was the unyielding discipline to wait, observe, calculate, and only act when the outcome was certain. In every act, humans had demonstrated that their strength was not in raw firepower or brute force, but in strategy, precision, and unshakable resolve. And across the stars, whispers began to spread, not of fear born from anger, not of submission demanded by violence, but of respect tinged with awe. Tales of the humans, deliberate, measured strikes, their protection of civilians, and their preservation of systems circulated from sector to sector. Even the most aggressive species began to speak cautiously of humanity. Patience was no longer a concept to dismiss. Silence was no longer an absence of action. It was a demonstration of unparalleled control and inevitable consequence. On Terra, young humans observed the events unfolding through broadcasts and intelligence feeds. Scientists, engineers, and explorers discussed the intricacies of the operations, the coordination required across vast distances, the timing and precision that had rendered fleets immobile without a single life lost unnecessarily. They spoke with awe, not arrogance. They understood the true nature of their species, adaptable, patient, precise, capable of action that balanced morality with inevitability. And in quiet moments, among the stars and across the colonies, the message was clear. Humanity had not sought war. Humanity had not sought conquest. Humanity had acted in defense of its own, and in doing so, had revealed a principle that the galaxy would never forget. Every empire, every fleet, every strategist now understood a fundamental truth. Provoke a human, test their patience, and you invite consequences beyond comprehension. Do not mistake patience for weakness. Do not assume silence is submission. The universe had learned that humans waited, observed, and acted only when certainty demanded it, and that moment, when it arrived, was inescapable. In the council chambers of the elders, a silent resolution took shape. Measures were discussed, protocols revised, alliances reconsidered. No species would again underestimate humanity. No strategist would ignore the possibility that a patient, deliberate adversary could reshape systems without a single casualty, without a single moment of overt aggression. And across the void, human fleets returned to routine patrols. Colonies resumed trade. Research continued, and exploration expanded. The humans did not boast, did not declare victory, and did not celebrate. Their silence was absolute, their patience intact, and yet the galaxy had felt the weight of their presence, the inevitability of their action, and the lesson of their discipline. The coalition had learned the ultimate lesson. Humans were unpredictable not because they were reckless, but because they were patient. They were formidable, not because they destroyed, but because they waited, calculated, and struck with certainty. Every empire, every fleet, every alien strategist now understood that patience could be the deadliest weapon in the universe. And the humans? They continued forward. Explorers charted new systems, colonies flourished, trade resumed, and research expanded. Life continued, quiet and deliberate. Humanity had acted, not out of anger, not out of ambition, but out of necessity. They had demonstrated a truth that would resonate across light years and generations. Silence is not weakness. Patience is not cowardice. And when humanity chooses to act, inevitability follows. The universe had underestimated humans for centuries. And now, it would never make that mistake again. The galaxy had learned, finally and irrevocably, to fear the patience of humanity. And in that fear, there was respect. And in that respect, the first true recognition of humanity's place in the cosmos had been forged.